Hello and welcome to yet another vlog. And yes, continuing the series of cost accounting standards, I am before you with the cost accounting standard 7. Welcome all of you. I am CSCSCM Nikhil Gupta and I am going to discuss the critical provisions of CAS 7 which will be very relevant for your June 2019 examination. Guys, a quick time check. April and May are only left, so only 2 months left for your examination. Guys, gear up if you have not geared up, and if you have geared up, then all the best for your preparations. Okay, coming on to the provisions of CAS 7. CAS 7 deals with employee cost, and there is a guidance note on CAS 7 as well, which we will be talking about in this short video. And I'll be taking you through the critical provisions of CAS 7 and will be doing one question which is a practical question which comes in the examination quite often. And yes, from CAS 6 and CAS 7 you will be finding one question for sure in your examination. So either CAS 6 or CAS 7. Both of these cases come in the examination alternatively. So let's start. So first of all, dealing with the definition of employee cost. Employee cost means employee benefits paid or payable. The thing to be noted is that any employee cost which is payable should also be categorized as employee cost, which means the arrears and the accruals which are there pertaining to the current period should also be considered as part of employee cost. In all forms of consideration given for service rendered by the employees, including temporary, part-time and contract employees. So these are the three categories of employees which are included in the employee cost category. And contract employee, definition of contract employee is given in footnote number 4, which says that contract employee includes employees directly engaged by the employer on contract basis, but does not include employees of any contractor engaged in the organization. So if the organization employs a employee on a contract basis, then that employee will be forming part of employee cost. But if the organization engages a contractor who supplies employees and the employees are on roles of the contractor, then that expense will not be categorized as employee cost. So this is a critical point which you need to remember in the definition of employee cost. Then the employees are paid remuneration as per their terms of employment contract. Overtime premium is the time spent beyond the normal working hours. So whatever time is being spent outside the normal working hours, it is known as overtime premium, and which is usually paid at a higher rate. It is paid at a higher rate than the normal time rate. The extra amount beyond the normal wages and salaries is called overtime premium. So whatever extra is being paid is known as overtime premium. Then there is a classification of employee cost which is given by the guidance note, and the classification is done on the basis of two criteria. Criteria number 1 is on the basis of tenure. If you categorize the employee cost on the basis of tenure, then the employee cost is to be categorized into two parts. One is current employee cost, other is future benefits or the termination benefits. So the current employee cost, which would include any cost which is paid or payable with respect to the employees, which is salaries and wages, allowances, dearness allowance, HRA, any kind of allowances which are given to the employees, bonus, ex gratia, incentives, PF, ESI, and the like benefits. Future benefit cost will include your things like provision created for gratuity, leave encashment, voluntary retirement compensation, any other retirement or separation benefits. Then comes the point where we bifurcate the employee cost on the basis of cost center or the cost object. It'll be categorized into two parts: direct employee cost and indirect employee cost. So again, as you are aware, direct employee cost means cost which has a direct relationship with the cost object in an economically feasible manner. And what is indirect employee cost? It is other than direct employee cost is indirect employee cost. So pretty simple. The bifurcation is pretty simple. Now comes the point where we are going to study the principles of measurement of cost. How will the cost be measured in our cost sheet and cost books? Employee cost will include all components of labor cost as enunciated in CAS 1. So first of all the things which are included in the labor cost will be included in the definition of employee cost. Employee cost should be ascertained, taken into account gross pay including all allowances payable. So the first and foremost thing which is included in the employee cost is obviously the gross pay which is given to the employees, including all the allowances. If there are any allowances, then they are also added to the employee cost. Then in case of companies where Ind AS is applicable, any remeasurement of such cost recognized in OCI shall not form part of employee cost. So guys, there's a new concept of OCI which refers to notional cost or notional gain. So if you have any employee cost which is put in other comprehensive income which arises due to either remeasurement or fair market value valuation of the benefits of employee which are created in past, the provisions which are created in past, if there's any notional cost, it will not be covered as part of employee cost. So other comprehensive income, all the items which are debited to other comprehensive income or credited to other comprehensive will not form part of employee cost. This is a clear message which is given by cost accounting standard. So undoubtedly, OCI is a new concept which has been introduced by Ind AS. Undoubtedly, it is a valid concept as per the financial statements, but as per the cost sheet, guys, cost statements are very clear that anything which is debited to OCI will not be categorized as employee cost. Then coming on to remuneration payable to non-executive directors, a very, very important point, guys. The non-executive directors who just give their names to the companies and are not performing any services, it shall not form part of employee cost but shall form part of administrative overheads. Now this is a very important point which is there in CAS 7, that the remuneration payable to non-executive directors should not form part of employee cost but should form part of administrative overheads. Then the employee cost shall not include compensation paid to employee for past period, but obvious that if there is any past period dues, they should not be debited to current year's cost sheet. Now, the CAS is not restricting itself to only past period expenses, but also extending itself to on account of any dispute or court order. So suppose there is any remuneration which is payable to the employees which is pertaining to the past period, but a case has been settled in the current year owing to which the liability has crystallized. Even in that case, guys, cost accounting standard is very clear that the cost should not be recognized in the current year. It is a past cost and hence it should be recognized in the past years only. However, what will the mechanism for the rectification of this error in the past cost sheets? That mechanism still needs to be deliberated upon. Then short provision of prior period made up in the current period. So if you have created a provision for salaries or any employee cost element and that provision was insufficient and you realize that the actual expenditure is more than the provision, then that excess expense which is booked in the current year should also not form part of employee cost because it pertains to prior period. Employee cost does not include imputed cost. This is a standard principle which we followed in all other cases as well. Cost of idle time. Idle time is idle hours multiplied by hourly rate, and that is the cost of idle time, which is the idle time spent by our employees. Normal idle time is included in ascertainment of normal cost, and abnormal idle time is not treated as part of cost and are directly charged to costing P&L account. Our standard principle that normal cost should be treated as part of normal idle time cost should be treated as part of normal cost, and abnormal idle time cost should be treated as part of costing P&L account and not as part of cost sheet. So if you are recognizing the cost as per the standard costing provisions, then the variances due to normal reasons should be treated as part of normal employee cost, and variances due to abnormal reasons shall form part of abnormal cost and not employee cost. Any subsidy grant should be reduced while computing the employee cost. Penalties, damages shall not form part of employee cost. And this is a very important point, guys, a unique point which is there in this case. Cost of perquisites like rent free, like free housing, free conveyance, and any similar benefit provided to an employee shall be determined at the total cost of all resources consumed in providing such benefits. So if you are providing free house to the employees, if you are providing free car to the employees or free servants to the employees, then the cost of employee cost should be escalated by the expenditure which is incurred by the company on providing such perquisites. A very important point here, guys, any recovery from the employees for such benefits shall be reduced from the cost. If you recover any amount from the employees, then that cost should be reduced from the total employee cost. Assignment principles are absolutely the same. I'm directly coming on to a very important aspect of this particular cost accounting standard, guys. This table will tell us a few critical aspects of employee cost and the treatments of those things. Number one, recruitment expenses, training expenses. Guys, there's a one-time recruitment expense, training expense of all the expenditure, of all the employees, which is to be expended by the company. And that recruitment and training cost should be treated as follows. It is treated as overheads and dealt with accordingly. So it is to be treated as indirect expenditure. That is the prime principle. Cost incurred in recruitment activities is to be treated as overheads and assigned to the cost object on an appropriate basis, such as a number of employees recruited department wise. So this cost should not form part of the direct cost, but should be considered as the indirect overheads and should be absorbed accordingly. So it does not form part of the direct employee cost. That is the key point which is derived from this table. Overtime premium is to be assigned to cost object depending upon the circumstances in which overtime cost was accruing. So if overtime is accruing due to normal reasons, then you can directly debit the account cost center which is leading to such incurrence of overtime. But if the overtime is due to abnormal reasons, then they should not be debited to cost sheet, but should be directly taken to costing P&L account. Then what is the treatment of idle time cost, guys? If our employees are idle for some time, idle time cost may be assigned to cost object or treated as overheads depending upon the economic feasibility and specific circumstances causing such idle time. So cost of idle time for the reasons anticipated, if there are anticipated reasons like normal lunchtime, holidays, etc., then it should be loaded to employee cost. If it is for abnormal reasons like some abnormal strike happens or something abnormal happens, then it should not be loaded to employee cost but should be taken to costing P&L account. Co-products are treated as if they are joint products, and I've already told you that the symbol for joint product is in an inverted Y, and the common cost which is incurred while arriving at these joint products should be bifurcated on the basis of the sales value at the split off point. We have discussed this point in our previous class also. Same point applies to this particular aspect of the gas even. Then comes the separation cost. Separation cost related to voluntary retirement, retrenchment, termination, etc. So if there's any separation cost, so employees are leaving your company or you are forcing employees to leave your company, then that cost related to voluntary retirement, retrenchment shall be amortized over the period benefiting from such cost. It should not be taken directly to employee cost but should be amortized over a period of time. And the amortized separation cost shall be treated as indirect cost. The amortized cost should be treated as indirect cost and should be allocated accordingly. Separation cost for discontinued operations. So if you are incurring some separation cost because you have closed one of your unit or department, then that separation cost will not go to cost sheet at all. Even as overhead, indirect cost also, it will not go to your cost sheet. And they should be charged to the costing P&L account directly, just like abnormal cost. So these are the special treatments for some of the items of employee cost. And now let us come on to a practical question which can come in your examination. So I've given a couple of questions in my study material. So let me start with a simple question maybe. Illustration number 2. We'll do illustration number 2, guys. I'm on page number 4.41 and illustration number 2 on this page reads as under: basic pay 5 lakh, lease rent paid for accommodation provided to an employee 2 lakhs, amount recovered from employee 40,000, employer's contribution to PF 75,000, employee's contribution to PF 75,000, reimbursement of medical expenses 67,000, hospitalization expenses of employee family member borne by the employer 19,000, festival bonus 20,000, festival advance 30,000. Calculate the employee cost. This is the question, guys. Now let us see how can we solve this question. Illustration number 2. Computation of employee cost as per CAS 7. So we'll compute the employee cost as per the provisions of CAS 7. And there's no format specified in the cost accounting standards. So we can use a simple format, amount in rupees. So we are going to start with the basic pay or the gross pay. Of course, it is the basic amount of salary which is given to the employees. Then second is lease rent paid for employees accommodation. So employee is staying at a place and the lease rental is paid for that employee. So why have you written this amount in the inner column? That is because I need to reduce the recoveries made from the employees from this particular expenditure. Recovery from employee is 40,000 rupees. So the net expenditure of 1,60,000 should be appearing in the employee cost. Next is employer's contribution to provident fund. Employer's contribution to PF. Employer's contribution to PF, guys, is 75,000. Next is employees' contribution to PF. Now, a very important point to be noted here is that employees' contribution to PF is not an expenditure for the company because company simply recovers it from the salary of the employees and deposit it to government. So, employees' contribution not being an expenditure, hence it will not appear in the cost sheet of the employer at all. So, I'm going to ignore this item. Next item is reimbursement of medical expenses. So some expenditure has been incurred by the employer on medical expenses of the employees. This will form part of the employee cost. Remember, any expenditure which is paid to facilitate or on behalf of the employee, it will be recognized as the employee cost. Then comes the hospitalization expenses. Again, guys, employer is paying on behalf of the employee and hence hospitalization expenses should be added in the employee cost. Of course, hospitalization is not happening for the employee, but for relative of the employee. Still, the expenditure should come as a part of employee cost. Then comes festival bonus. Yes, on Holi, Diwali or some major festivals, there is some bonus which is declared to the employees. Of course, it is a part of employee cost. Then comes a item festival advance. Guys, let me tell you, festival advance is not an expenditure. It is just an advance salary which is paid to the employees. And hence this advance salary should not form part of the employee cost of the current year. It should form part of the employee cost of the next year, but not current year. Because this is advance, the employee would be working free of cost in the subsequent period, and hence this advance is not an expenditure for current year. It is recoverable. Therefore, I am not adding this festival advance in while computing the employee cost. So this finishes our line items. I am completing the question by just adding all these points. 5 lakhs plus 1,60,000 plus 75,000 plus 67,000 plus 9,000 plus 20,000. 8,41,000. This is the answer which we have arrived at, and we'll write a conclusion. Guys, writing conclusion is a good habit which you should practice in your, which you should follow in your examination also. Hence, the total employee cost as per CAS 7 is computed as rupees 8,41,000. This is how your questions should look like. And yes, from this chapter, from this cost accounting standard, very easy and basic questions also recur, like this one which we have done. And there are some difficult questions as well which you need to practice at your home. Illustration number 4 is very good. Then illustration number 7 and 8 which you have to do yourself, they are really nice. So please practice this CAS very good, very well, because this CAS recurs in the examination quite often, and we have seen plethora of questions coming from this CAS, and CAS 6 and CAS 7 are really the heart and soul of any cost sheet, because material cost and employee cost are the main ingredients of any cost sheet, and any business, be it manufacturing, be it service sector, be it any business, these two elements are definitely there in their cost sheet. Therefore, very important CAS from a theory as well as practical perspective. If you have any questions with respect to this CAS, if you're not able to follow any question which is there in this CAS, please do approach me on Facebook Messenger, and I can interact with you, chat with you on Facebook Messenger and resolve all your queries. But remember one thing, June is fast approaching, guys. Please work hard, study hard, and please do your preparations well, because exams are not easy, they are tough, and they are fast approaching. So with that note, all the very best and happy studying.